Can you believe my own parents completely cut me out of their will, leaving absolutely everything to my sister? And that's when I knew, deep down, that I was done being their personal ATM? The sheer betrayal hit me like a physical blow, and it ignited a fire inside me I didn't even know I had. My name is Alex, I'm 27, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. You know the type. Growing up, I just did what felt right, what was expected. I helped with bills, took care of things when my parents needed me, pretty much kept the whole family ship afloat. I never questioned it. It was family, right? That's what you do. My sister, though, she's 25, and let's just say her path was different. She never had to grow up the way I did. I was always picking up the slack when my parents couldn't or wouldn't, which was more often than I cared to admit. But I kept telling myself, it's for family. I had no idea just how much I was being taken advantage of, or the real reason my sister had it so easy, until one brutally cold afternoon. It was just a few days after my parents passed away. Everything still felt surreal, a dull ache in my chest. We were going over their will, and the lawyer, a kind but somber man, was explaining the contents. I sat there, uneasy, bracing myself for the emotional weight of it all. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what he said next. He handed me the document. As I flipped through it, the words blurring, it felt like the floor just dropped out from under me. My parents had decided. My sister was getting the house. All their savings. Every single asset they owned. And me? I got a big fat thank you for your service. Years I had poured my money, my time, my energy into that house, into their lives, believing it was just part of being a family. And now, seeing it in cold black and white print, it was clear. I'd been played. Every penny, every belonging they had, everything went to her. All those years I spent supporting them when things were tight, and I got absolutely nothing in return. It wasn't that I expected a fortune, but I had hoped for something. Some acknowledgement. Some recognition for the sacrifices I'd made. I tried to swallow the burning sting in my throat. I looked at my sister. She was sitting there, calm as anything, texting someone, head tilted slightly to the side. Her world was completely undisturbed. The frustration, the sheer rage bubbling inside me, was almost unbearable. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I held it in. I always held it in. The lawyer, bless his heart, must have sensed the suffocating tension. He cleared his throat, shuffled papers, gave us both a sympathetic glance. He said nothing more. And my sister? She didn't even blink. Just kept on texting. When the meeting was over, I walked out of that office in a daze. I didn't say a word to anyone. Not to my sister. Not to my parents' friends who were offering condolences. I just drove home, that bitter knot in my stomach tightening with every mile. For the next few days, I did what I always did. I tried to shove the hurt down, to just keep going. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. My sister didn't even care. She never had to deal with the difficult stuff. She never had to care for our parents when they struggled. She didn't even seem to care about the house, the money, any of it. She just got it all handed to her, like it was nothing. And I was the one left holding an empty bag. So, I made a decision. A firm, unwavering decision. I had been contributing to their expenses for years, helping with bills, repairs, everything without ever asking for a thing in return. But now, I wasn't going to contribute another single cent. A week after the will reading, my phone buzzed. It was my dad. No greeting. No, how are you holding up? Nothing. Just, the rent is due. My heart hammered against my ribs. The tone alone. It wasn't a request. It was an assumption. An expectation that I would just keep paying, like I always had. I had to physically stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. I'd had enough. I didn't even think twice. I typed my response, not anymore. You'll need to ask your daughter. I hit send. My thumb lingered on the screen for a moment, as if the phone might explode from the sheer audacity of what I'd just done. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. The silence after I sent it was deafening. I knew my dad would be furious. He was never the type to be vulnerable or admit when he was wrong. And my sister? She'd probably act like I was being childish, a drama queen. But I didn't care. Not anymore. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It was Dad. I opened the message. It simply read, "What is wrong with you, Alex?" My anger, which I thought had peaked, surged again. No, hey. No, how are you? Just anger. No care, no concern. Just a demand. I took a deep breath. He was upset because I wasn't doing what he expected. He was used to me handling everything, picking up the slack. And I wasn't going to do it anymore. Not after everything. I didn't respond right away. I wanted him to stew in his own frustration. I wasn't going to make this easy. That night, stewing over everything, I wondered if I'd done the right thing. Was I being petty? Should I just help out like always? Swallow my frustration and keep the peace? I had spent my whole life trying to be the one who held things together for this family. But now, it felt like everything was falling apart, and I was completely alone in it. The next day, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my sister. I groaned, staring at the message. It was short, direct. "Dad said you're not paying rent anymore." What's up with that? I wanted to ignore her. But she was the one who got everything anyway. So why should I keep doing all this? I decided to respond, keeping it short and to the point. I'm done. I'm not paying for something I'm not getting anything back for. You're the one inheriting everything, so it's on you now. Her response was instant. What do you mean, on me? I don't have the time to deal with rent, Alex. Why are you doing this? And there it was. The truth, finally, laid bare. She didn't want to deal with anything. She wanted everything handed to her, just like always. I could feel the anger bubbling again, but I controlled it. Just a little bit longer, I thought. Just wait a little longer. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat back and watched the messages roll in. A strange sense of calm washed over me, knowing that this time, I wasn't the one being taken advantage of. But then I got another message from my dad. This one was different. It wasn't just anger or frustration. It was something else. A tone of desperation. His message read, "Alex, please. We've been through so much together. Your mom would have wanted us to keep this together. I can't do this without your help." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. The message hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't thought about how he would react to my decision. Not like this. The part about my mom, his plea, it felt real. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. Was I being too harsh? Had I gone too far? I remembered my mom's comforting words, the way she always told me to take care of my dad. She always tried to keep the peace, tried to make us a family again after every blow-up. But then, just as quickly as the doubt crept in, the anger flared back up. My mom had always been the buffer between me and my dad. She had always been the one to smooth things over when he was demanding, when he made me feel like I was just an extension of what he wanted, instead of my own person. I remembered the nights I'd sit by her side after an argument with him, and she'd quietly remind me that it was okay to be frustrated, that I didn't always have to shoulder the responsibility for everything. It hurt. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. My mom was gone now. And that meant I didn't have her there to help me understand what to do anymore. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, wrestling with my emotions. Messages from my dad kept coming in, but I didn't open them right away. Instead, I let the silence stretch, giving myself time to think. I was no longer just a son in his eyes. I had become something more. Something he could lean on. I had been there for him for so long, but in all that time, had I really ever been allowed to be anything other than that? I couldn't keep sacrificing my own life, my own future, for him. After a few minutes of staring at my phone, I finally replied to his desperate message. I know you want me to help, Dad, but you never gave me a choice. I've been paying for everything for years, and not once did you stop to think about what that was doing to me. You just expected it, like I was some kind of ATM. And now, because of the will, you're acting like I owe you something. I don't. I'm done being your backup plan. I put my phone down and paced around my apartment, a heavy weight settling in my chest. It was the truth, but I couldn't shake the guilt that followed. Was this too far? Was I really doing the right thing? Maybe I was being petty. Maybe I should just help one last time. After all, they were still my parents, right? But I stopped myself before I could give in. I had to stick with it. This wasn't just about the rent or the bills. It was about respect. It was about finally standing up for myself after all these years of being the one who was always there when they needed me. I checked my phone again, expecting more messages from Dad. And sure enough, they were there. But this time, the messages were different. Alex, please don't do this. I know we've had our issues, but we're family. Your sister, she's not ready for this responsibility. You know she isn't. I froze. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. There was the unspoken truth that I had known all along. My sister wasn't ready for any of this. She had never been expected to be the responsible one. She was the one who always got a free pass, who never had to deal with the hard stuff. My dad had always known that. And now he was trying to guilt me into fixing it because he couldn't rely on her. Don't act like this is the first time you've asked me to pick up the slack, I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. You've always relied on me, Dad, and I've always been there. But not anymore. You'll have to figure it out on your own. I hit send. Immediately I regretted it. The finality of it all hit me in a wave, and I felt a sense of emptiness. What had I just done? I couldn't take it back now. Her response came quickly. You're making a huge mistake, Alex. You don't want to do this. I'm begging you. I stared at the message, my mind spinning. But it was the last line that really got to me. I've never asked you for much, but I need you now. The words pierced through me like a knife. I had spent my whole life feeling like I was always the one who had to be there, the one who had to sacrifice for the family. And now, even after everything, I still couldn't get out from under that weight. The guilt gnawed at me. I set my phone down again, walking around the apartment, trying to breathe through the waves of frustration. I could feel my chest tightening. I hated this. I hated that this had to happen. But I wasn't going to let him manipulate me anymore. This was my chance to take control of my own life. A few hours later, as the evening sun began to set, I received another message from my sister. This one was different, though. This time, she didn't ask about the rent or what I was doing. Instead, she simply wrote, Dad's freaking out. He says you're abandoning the family. I sighed. Of course, that's what he would say. He always had to turn it into a bigger drama. I could already imagine her face, the way she'd act like everything was fine, like nothing had changed. But something had changed. Something had snapped in me, and I wasn't going to be the one holding everything together anymore. But then the next message came, and it caught me completely off guard. Alex, can you at least talk to me about this? I don't want to lose you too. It was the first time my sister had ever reached out to me like this. Genuinely. I could almost feel her vulnerability through the screen. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. This was new territory. My sister had never been the one to show any real emotion before, and now here she was, asking for my help. But my heart was heavy and my mind was made up. The phone in my hand felt like a weight, and I stared at it for what felt like forever. What was I supposed to say now? I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. My sister's words lingered, each letter seeming to pierce through the armor I'd spent years building around my heart. I don't want to lose you too. Those words. I had never heard her sound so human, so vulnerable. It wasn't just about the money anymore. The rent, the bills, the house, none of that mattered as much as this new dynamic. My sister, who had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, was finally showing cracks in her perfect little facade. She was scared, and I could feel that in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to tell her everything was going to be okay. But the reality of the situation was far from okay. And I had to remind myself why I was doing this in the first place. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Not after how they had treated me, not after years of me always being the one who had to pick up the pieces. But I couldn't shake the nagging voice in my head. What would Mom have wanted me to do? The guilt surged back, heavy and suffocating. The phone buzzed again, dragging me from my thoughts. Another message from my dad. It read, "I don't know what you want from me, Alex, but I've tried. I've tried everything to make it right with you." I rubbed my temples. It was always the same song and dance. I've tried. But where had those efforts been when I needed them? When I was the one struggling under the weight of their expectations? He didn't care until it was convenient. Now that the will had cleared everything up, suddenly I was expected to fix everything for them. I looked back at my sister's message, my heart aching a little. I was still the older sibling, still the one who had always tried to keep the peace, even when it meant swallowing my own feelings and pretending everything was fine. But pretending wasn't an option anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. With a sigh, I started typing my response. But this time I took my time. I wasn't just going to snap back like I had earlier. I had to choose my words carefully. As painful as that was, my sister deserved at least that much. I'm not abandoning anyone, but I can't keep doing this anymore. I'm not your backup plan. I've been the one to handle everything for so long, and it's not fair. You and Dad can't just expect me to fix everything when it falls apart. You have to take responsibility for once. The words felt harsh, but they were true. There was no point in sugarcoating it. This wasn't about me being angry. It was about me finally standing up for myself. I was tired of being the one everyone leaned on without ever considering how much I was sacrificing. I hit send. As I waited for her reply, a sense of dread filled me. What if she didn't understand? What if this was the end of our relationship? She had always been the one to lean on Dad, to be the one who got out of the tough stuff. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was being too harsh on her. But deep down, I knew I couldn't go back. The phone buzzed again, and my heart skipped a beat. This time, it was from my sister. "I understand, but please don't shut me out. I'm not like that. I know I've been selfish before, but I'll try, Alex. I promise." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. My sister's words hit me harder than I expected. She was finally acknowledging it, acknowledging her part in all this. But could I really believe her? Could I trust that things would be different this time? I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the last few years had taught me not to trust easily. The guilt that had plagued me for so long had been built on a lifetime of me always giving in, always making excuses for their behavior. Maybe this time will be different, I thought. But maybe wasn't good enough anymore. I typed back, "I'll try, but I need you to really step up this time. I can't keep doing everything for you, and I won't." After I sent it, I felt an odd sense of relief. At least I had said my piece. At least I wasn't running away from this anymore. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't sure where things would go from here, but I had drawn a line in the sand. I wasn't just going to be their safety net anymore. But then my phone rang. It was my dad. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I had no idea what he was going to say, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. With a deep breath, I answered. "Alex, listen," my dad's voice crackled through the phone. "I know things are rough, but you've always been there for us. Boys, don't turn your back on your family now. You're the only one who can help us." I closed my eyes, the words swirling in my mind. You're the only one who can help us. That was the crux of it all, wasn't it? He had always relied on me, expected me to fix things when they went wrong, but never gave me a choice in the matter. Dad, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I'm not your backup plan anymore. You can't keep putting everything on me and expecting me to just fix it. I'm not going to keep sacrificing my life to make up for your mistakes. I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. I didn't raise you to be like this. You're turning your back on everything we've worked for. My pulse quickened. You didn't raise me at all, Dad. You used me. There was silence for a moment, and I could almost hear him processing my words, trying to come up with something to say. But he didn't. You've made your choice then, he finally said, his voice flat, defeated. I didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. The call ended, and I felt a weight settle in my chest, the finality of it all. I had cut the cord. But what did that really mean? I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going back. The days following that call were quieter than I expected. At first, there was a heaviness in the air, like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. My dad didn't reach out again, and I couldn't say I was surprised. This wasn't a new dynamic, it was just finally laid bare. I had always known he was emotionally distant, but it wasn't until I called him out that I saw just how little he had actually given me over the years. I spent a few days just breathing. I had been holding my breath for so long, trying to make sense of everything. But now I could breathe freely. The weight of responsibility that had been smothering me for years, responsibility that wasn't mine, lifted. And for the first time, I felt like I had space to live my own life. And then, a week later, my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. The rent is due. That was it. No apology. No, how are you? No acknowledgement of anything we had just gone through. It was the same old, same old. I stared at the text for a long moment, my heart racing. The old me, the one who would have just caved in, was trying to resurface. I could feel the urge to fix everything, to just pay the rent and keep the peace. But I fought it down. This was no longer my problem. I had drawn the line, and I wasn't going to let it get erased. I typed the response, but I wasn't going to just let this slide. I wasn't going to be his emotional punching bag anymore. You're on your own, I wrote, my fingers steady despite the storm brewing in my chest. I'm not the one who has to pay for your choices anymore. I hit send. For a moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't just the money, it was the finality. The moment I had stopped being their backup plan, their doormat, their solution to every problem. It wasn't going to be easy, and I knew I'd have to live with the consequences of cutting them off, but at least I was living for myself now. The silence that followed was deafening. No response from him. No frantic calls. Just an empty phone. I was almost surprised. 2 days later, my sister messaged me again. This time, her tone was different. She wasn't the child clinging to the scraps of Dad's approval anymore. I spoke to Dad. He's furious. He said you're abandoning us. I felt a familiar sting, but I refused to let it control me. Instead, I wrote back, my words as firm as steel, I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just done being the one who fixes everything. It's time for Dad to take responsibility for once. There was a long pause before she responded. I understand, but I don't know how to fix this. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let her words hang there, knowing I had done all I could. She was an adult now. She had to find her own way. It was painful, but I had to let go. If she wanted to be part of my life, she'd have to meet me halfway, just like I had to do with myself. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between my family and me grew. My dad never texted me again. He didn't even ask for help when the rent was due again. But I wasn't worried. For the first time, I was free from the chaos of their expectations. Months later, I found out my dad had been forced to sell the house. The bills piled up and there was no one left to foot the bill. My sister ended up moving into a small apartment, the weight of everything falling squarely on her shoulders. I could feel the distant echoes of guilt tugging at me, but I wasn't the one who had caused it. I hadn't walked away from them, I had walked toward myself. One night, months after everything had calmed down, my sister called me. Her voice was softer than it had been in years, a little unsure. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't know how much it was affecting you. I should have been there for you. I sat in the quiet of my apartment, listening to her. I wasn't sure how to respond at first, but I knew one thing. Forgiveness was a choice, and I wasn't ready to make it yet. Not because I hated her, but because I needed to see if she could change. If this was going to be different. I know, I said, my voice steady. But I can't fix things for you anymore. You have to do it for yourself. We both do. And that was the end of it. We never became the same family we once were. But in a way, that was the best part of all. I had my own life now, no longer buried under the weight of everyone else's expectations. The rent was no longer my problem. The bills were no longer my burden. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. And this time, it wasn't because I was carrying someone else's weight. It was because I was free.